Welcome back to Living Scripture, our weekly space where we get together and try to reflect back on the sacred sound, on revelation, on the universal message that comes across cultures, and in this case in particular, examining some obscure, not so well-known sections from the Sanatana Dharma texts. More specifically Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but also some other traditions as well, some other texts that apply to other traditions. So today we will go to a very interesting verse coming from an unknown source. It says like this in Sanskrit first. śīlaṁ saṁvasato jñeyaṁ śaucaṁ saṁvyavahārataḥ prajñā saṁkathanāj jñeyā tribhiḥ pātraṁ parīkṣyate. The translation says, character is to be known by living together. Cleanliness is to be known by working together. And wisdom is to be known by conversing together. A recipient is to be examined in these three ways. Very interesting verse, at least in my opinion, from an unknown source. To begin with, that's interesting in it unto itself, the anonymity of wisdom. So many times we find that anonymous books, anonymous authors, poets, verses, where you can really see the one who is sharing this wisdom with us is not interested in taking the attention to himself, herself, but to the wisdom in itself, to the message, to the content. So here we have a triple way, so to say, to establish who we are, basically, where we are standing. Character, cleanliness, and wisdom in this particular case. And for me, the main important thing that took my attention when reading this verse and it took me to, okay, I have to share this with all of you, is the notion of together, the togetherness. You can know one's character, one people's character, by how they live together with other people. You can know one's people's cleanliness, how they work together. You can know some people's wisdom, how they talk to each other. In other words, reality is relational. Everything exists in connection to everything else. Sambandha, everything is bonded together with a common center. So as much as we acknowledge that, not only in principle, in theory, but as much as we walk the talk, as much as we live as if there is relationality in every direction, then we are treading the realistic path, the actual path of reality. So I always like to think about that many times, and it's interesting now to find a shloka that somehow confirms that intuition, especially in the first line, śīlaṁ saṁvasato jñeyaṁ. How do you know someone? śīlaṁ, character, how it's known, saṁvasato, how do they live together? You can have so many ideas about who you are, isolated from an environment, in your own chamber, by yourself, without exposing yourself to interaction with the human race, with other species, with God, of course, as well. But again, for me, it's very important in our particular tradition, the beginner's mind is characterized by, I acknowledge the existence of God, but I don't know how to relate to every other person, any other person. So that disqualifies me for belonging to a higher category, so to say. The more I learn to relate to everyone else, the more advanced I am. That's kind of the litmus test in our particular tradition, the yardstick. How you can relate to everything with God at its root, of course. The goal of life is, love, divine love. By loving God, as I like to say, it's not an isolated phenomenon. It's not that I love God and I hate everything else. I'm indifferent with this and that. If you love the divine, you love everything that is connected to the divine. And everything and everyone happens to be connected to the divine. So your character, śīlaṁ in this case, your integrity, your dignity, who you are, will be seen as how you live together. Again, that doesn't mean necessarily force yourself to enter a community. But in one sense, we are all in community. Again, community, common unity. You can only have community as much and as long as you keep sight of this common unity we all share. We are all Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There's only one family. So again, we can have so many ideas about ourselves in isolation, but we need to expose ourselves to relationship. Then we see where we are standing, who we are, how we relate to others, what's being triggered in us, in our connection to others, what do we need to work on, which are our shadows, how we are projecting, how we are mirrored back in relationships. That's why most people need to, and this is not something bad, but they need to enter into a relationship with a couple, with a partner, to have a daily mirror. And if you don't have that, as in my case as a monk, somehow or other you need to assure having that in one way or another with other friends, brothers, sisters, to keep yourself in context, to have some other points of reference, so you are not the only one final absolute referential point for reality. So character is to be known by living together. Śīlaṁ, saṁvasato, jñeyaṁ. When Mahaprabhu speaks his famous third verse of Shikshastakam, Trinada Pisunichena Tadori Vasahishnu Namani Namanadina Kirtaniya Sadahari, he concludes saying, praise the divine endlessly. But first he says, be humble, tolerant, respectful, and so on, in relationship to others. So learn to be in relationship, learn to train your muscle of relationality in the here and now with your peers. And on that foundation, your approach to God is not evasive, it's not bypassing, it's not escapism, because many times we can just run into transcendence to avoid all the messy work of integration, of learning to live with one another, learning to connect with one another. And again, this verse is emphasizing that in each one of these triple category. Śīlaṁ saṁvasato jñeyaṁ. Next line, śaucaṁ saṁvyavahārataḥ. Cleanliness, śaucaṁ, is to be known by working together. Saṁvyavahārataḥ. Very similar to the previous line. Because sometimes, again, we may have notions of cleanliness. Have to take shower in the morning, 2 showers per day, 3 showers per day, 4 showers per day. If I went to the bathroom, I have to do this. I have to purify me with this ritual, with this water, with this mantra. And I'm not against any of that, as long as that doesn't get in the way of this essential understanding of cleanliness. How we work together. Again, the other one was how we live together. We can live together, but we have to learn to work together also. It's not just, I'm living with someone in the same planet. I'm living with someone under the same roof, in the same house. Yeah, but you can still hate each other, not collaborate with one another. If there is one potential in the human race that we have refined through ages, is the potential to collaborate. And that's how not only we can survive as a species, but we can thrive. Exploring our potential for collaboration instead of fragmentation, division, us and them, dualistic thinking, collaboration, unity and diversity. So that's actual cleanliness, interestingly. The opposite, not being uncleanliness, will be not learning to work together, not being willing. I mean, that's challenging, of course. The verse is never saying this is easy. So working together is a challenge. There will be diversity. There will be differences of opinion. We have to learn to love each other. You have to learn to collaborate, again, to integrate our diversity in a higher synthesis. So that's real cleanliness. In our tradition, we have also these 4 pillars, sometimes called regulative principles. Satyam, one of those. Tapas, one of those. Śaucaṁ, ahimsa and śaucaṁ, one of them is śaucaṁ, cleanliness. Sometimes that's exclusively related to have committed sexual interaction or celibacy, depending on the case. And sometimes we forget that that's not the only way to speak about cleanliness. So this verse is showing another interesting way of being clean, being pure, in a substantial way. Learn to work together. That's we'll see how clean everyone is. And the third way of measuring who we are, where we are, is prajñā saṁkathanāj, prajñā saṁkathanāj jñeyaṁ. Wisdom is to be known by conversing together. So prajñā means wisdom. Not only knowledge, not only information, but wisdom, earned deep experience, learned lessons. So how we can know that? Jñeya means to know. You know someone's wisdom. Saṁkathanāj. Saṁkathanāj. Katha. Katha means to talk with one another. Matchita matgata prana. Kathayantastamam nitya. Tushyanti charamanti cha. Krishna says in the Gita. Speaking about his devotees, how they get together, live together, work together, and talk together, and nourish each other, inspire each other, show their affection, their love to each other, in opening their hearts to each other. Again, being vulnerable, being naked, being honest with one another, presenting themselves, creating safe space, safe vessels for everyone to be who they are, to acknowledge each other unconditionally, to show unconditional regard and acceptance, and to present ourselves from that place, and conversing together. Again, conversing together is not just any conversation. You can just go to the corner of your house, to the street, and engage in gossip for the whole evening. We are conversing together, and that shows my wisdom. But again, this in a particular context. And again, wisdom is to be known in relational terms. You cannot just know someone if he's how wise someone else, but what I say in a lecture, like what I'm doing now. I can speak fancy words, learn verses, know Sanskrit, or who knows what, dress fancily. And some people may be impressed by that, have some charisma, who knows what, but that's not wisdom according to this verse. How you can converse with one another. And not just conversing with one another, but doing that from a proper place, from a place of acknowledging the other person, from a place of relationality, from a place of awareness of how much we need each other. Sri Chaitanya will describe his process, saṁkirtan. Saṁkirtan means collective effort, collective introspection, collective togetherness with a common center. If I'm doing kirtan by myself, as I like to make a play of words, I could engage in some kirtan. But saṁkirtan, I need you. We need each other. So the very foundational practice of our tradition is telling us that message. We need each other. And that's what this verse is saying again. And that's the way, tribhiḥ, pātraṁ, parīkṣyate. Pātraṁ means like a recipient, a vessel, in this case, ourselves, or the vessel of our heart. Tribhiḥ, in these three ways, parīkṣyate, is to be examined. So we are all trying to develop our kripa patra. We will use sometimes the word patra, the vessel of our heart. Make our heart a vessel for the divine mercy, for God's grace. So how to make our kripa patra, how to craft that vessel in the best possible way, this is a threefold consideration we can keep in mind. Śīlaṁ, let's repeat the verse one more time. Śīlaṁ saṁvasato jñeyaṁ. Character is to be known by living together. Śaucaṁ saṁvyavahārataḥ. Cleanliness is to be known by working together. Prajñā saṁkathanāj jñeyā. Wisdom is to be known by conversing together. Tribhiḥ pātraṁ parīkṣyate. A recipient is to be examined in these three ways. So this is today's verse. We are very thankful to the unknown source, anonymous author of this beautiful piece of wisdom. Hopefully we're going to stay with this for a few moments, even before turning off this video and continue with our day and reflecting. And you can please share your reflections with us in the comment section, how this verse touched you, with other insights come to your heart in terms of this notion of togetherness as the litmus test to know where we are in terms of character, in terms of cleanliness, in terms of wisdom, in terms of everything, because we do not exist in a vacuum. We do not exist in isolation. So whatever we need to ascertain about anyone, that has to be seen, according to this verse, in terms of how we interact with the environment in our togetherness. So have a blessed week and see you very soon for our next section, is Living Scripture.